Before 1973, abortion was not legal in most of the United States. When it was legal, the reasoning had to be a complication in the woman's health, or rape, or incest. Women would often travel long distances to states with fewer restrictions. The magazine The Pacific Standard wrote that between the 1950s and 60s, around 200,000 to 1.2 million dangerous illegal abortions were performed every year. Many laws had strict restrictions. As mentioned by the Guttmacher Institute, in the early 1960s, only Pennsylvania prohibited all abortions, but 44 other states only allowed abortion when the woman's life would be endangered if she carried the pregnancy to term. In 1967, Colorado had passed a law allowing women to have an abortion up to 16 weeks of pregnancy if there was an endangerment for her or the fetus's mental or physical health, or in the case of rape or incest. Norma McCorvey was born in Simmsport, Louisiana on September 22, 1947. She later moved to Texas. In 1970, Norma McCorvey became pregnant with her third unwanted and unexpected child. She had 2 previous children a few years before. With her first child, Melissa, she was young and impregnated by her husband, Elwood McCorvey. She wanted an abortion and was not granted one. When she gave birth to her first child, she begged her mother to take the baby. Her mother, Mary Sandifer Nelson, agreed and took in the baby. The children from her second and third pregnancies went into the foster system. Henry Wade was a district attorney of Dallas and a lawyer. In the early 1960s, Wade had been a part of the prosecution of Jack Ruby, the man who shot Lee Harvey Oswald. Ruby shot Oswald a few days after he assassinated John F. Kennedy. The county Wade worked in had a legalized abortion. In 1970, when McCorvey wanted an abortion, she asked Henry Wade to allow her to have an abortion in the county. He wouldn't allow it, and McCorvey later sued him. In early 1970, a lawyer named Linda Coffey sought out to find a woman willing to become a plaintiff for her case. Coffey wanted to find a woman with an unwanted pregnancy to be a plaintiff to help change the Texas abortion laws. She later got a call from an old colleague referring her to Norma McCorvey, who was unhappy and was going through her third unwanted pregnancy. McCorvey agreed to help Coffey with her case. In the case, she went under the legal alias Jane Roe. Coffey later reconnected with an old friend, Sarah Weddington, who was also a lawyer. She joined McCorvey and Coffey on the case. Coffey filed the case to the district court and later appealed to the Supreme Court, and the court decided to hear what she had to say. This is when Weddington took the spotlight. Coffey helped ground the case and file it. Weddington argued in court and fought for it while Coffey was a background character. On January 22, 1973, with Chief Justice Harry Blackham delivering the court's opinion, the Supreme Court decided with a 7-2 vote to allow abortion with certain restrictions based on the 3 trimesters of pregnancy. Within the first trimester of pregnancy, the decision is between a doctor and their patient. The state cannot intervene. In the second trimester, the state may intervene if the woman's health is at risk. During the third trimester, the state may intervene at any time and prohibit abortions. As stated in the Roe v. Wade decision, a state law that broadly prohibits abortion without respect to the stage of pregnancy or other interests violates that right. In addition to that, the Supreme Court decided that the option to have an abortion is protected by right to privacy under the 14th Amendment. The court determined that abortion is a private matter and women had the right to make that choice. Shortly after the case, many states created more restrictive or more accessible abortion laws. 3 years after Roe v. Wade, in 1976, Planned Parenthood of Central Missouri sued the state of Missouri to help avoid enforcement of a law that was passed a year after Roe v. Wade. Planned Parenthood tried to prevent enforcement of needing parental consent if the woman is a minor. The state of Missouri proposed that if a physician were to perform an abortion, they could risk being charged with manslaughter, since they did not preserve life. Planned Parenthood had also wanted to stop the state from depriving the mother and father parental rights if the fetus survived the abortion. In 1983, the city of Akron, Ohio passed an ordinance surrounding abortion. They wanted to put forth a law enforcing a 24-hour waiting period between signing a consent form and undergoing the procedure. Parents of unmarried minors would have to sign a consent form to the abortion. All remains from an abortion had to be properly disposed of. As McCorvey once said, there were dead babies and baby parts stacked like cordwood. Some of the babies made it into buckets, and others did not. The stench was horrible. Plastic bags full of baby parts, little tiny hands, and feet visible through jars frozen in blood. Akron Center for Reproductive Health had tried to prevent the enforcement of this law. There are many cases still being fought today, whether to protect abortion or to restrict it. Abortion laws are ever changing. Currently, Texas has one of the most restrictive abortion laws in the country. When a woman in Texas wants to receive an abortion, she has to have at least 2 visits to a doctor's office, view the sonogram after an ultrasound, and if the woman chooses to continue with an abortion, she has to wait 24 hours after viewing the sonogram. After that, a woman has the option to undergo an abortion up to 20 weeks. If the woman is a minor, she would also need parental consent or approval from a judge. Equally important to the right to choose is economic support. Some of this support has come in the form of Title X, which is a federal grant program that was created in 1970 to help fund places like Planned Parenthood, that helped make the different forms of contraceptives affordable. As said by PRH, services provided include contraceptive counseling and provision, breast and cervical cancer screenings, testing and treatment for sexually transmitted infections, and pregnancy diagnosis and counseling. A federal rule was passed in February 2019 by the Trump administration, which will allow Title X to still perform abortions, however it must be in a separate facility and they cannot recommend abortion to their patients. As said by Stephanie Shriok, president of Emily's List, it effectively dismantles Title X, forces doctors to lie, and forbids them from referring their patients to abortion, and prevents women from being able to access Planned Parenthood services. Since this new rule has been passed, Planned Parenthood was forced to leave Title X and their funding, and are currently looking for other forms of funding. There are many different options for unwanted pregnancies, such as contraceptives, abortion if wanted, and there are other services for after an abortion, such as abortion recovery.
Here, we allowed them to talk about their story, to share their experience. And one of the things that we really emphasize, especially if they have any kind of spiritual beliefs, is forgiveness. Because a lot of times there's an unforgiveness for maybe a parent who pressured them into having an abortion, a teacher, a counselor, or the boyfriend's parents, whoever. They might have felt pressured. They might have some unforgiveness toward the abortion provider because maybe they didn't feel like they got all the information that they needed to make an informed choice. So we talked to them about forgiveness and forgiveness for themselves,